Welcome back. Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang wants to change the way we think as a society. He would try to throw out traditional economic thinking if elected. Back to my conversation with Andrew Yang. Now, you propose something else I consider a paradigm shift. That is converting the emphasis of the economy to what you call human-centered capitalism. It's the second of your big three policies, Medicare for All being the third. We've heard of that. You say the emphasis right now on corporate profits isn't working. Human-centered capitalism focuses on three primary principles. One, people are more important than money. Two, a dollar is not the economic unit. People are, in that case. Three, markets exist to serve the common goals and values of society. This is now getting into, I guess, economic theory. I don't know if I particularly get it, and maybe a lot of people watching at home don't get it. So how would you like this to change? How would this change daily life, I guess, as we know it? What changes for businesses or jobs or how we pay for things if a dollar is not the economic unit?
Well, so the example I use is that my wife is right now at home with our two young boys, one of whom is autistic. And GDP would measure her work at 0, and the market would value her work at 0. Yet we know that her work is among the most valuable work that anyone can do, and that our society should, if anything, be channeling more energy and resources towards that sort of work. So right now we're in another trap, which is that GDP is going up and up even as more Iowans and Americans are getting left behind. And you can see it in the stats. Life expectancy is declining, drug addiction is climbing, suicides are at record highs. Our labor force participation rate is at a multi-decade low. It's the same levels as El Salvador and the Dominican Republic.
Education is falling compared to the rest of the world as well, those sorts of things.
Yeah, so if you look at those measurements, you can see we're not doing very well. But then if you look at headline GDP, you're like, oh, things are going great. So we have the wrong measuring sticks right now, and what human-centered capitalism is about is trying to make the measuring sticks the things that actually matter to us, like how healthy we are, how our kids are doing. And then if someone does work that helps make their community stronger, that actually counts as economic progress.
But people still are going to check their bank account as well, right?
Oh yeah, there'll still be bank accounts. And the bank account will have another $1,000 a month in it after I'm president.
What structurally, though, has to change for government to make that happen? Is it legislation? Is it incentives? How do you get that shift to take place to really make it effective?
And this is the great thing, and I speak to CEOs around the country. I mean, I've been a CEO myself, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. And look, like, we need to change the measuring stick so that people can actually invest resources in things that are going to make people and communities stronger. Right now, if you're a CEO, you can talk about it, but at the end of the day, you have to just serve the bottom line. And so if we create a new bottom line, and the great thing is you don't need some super majority or anything to make this happen. Like, as president, I will simply go to the appropriate agency and say, hey guys, guess what? We made up GDP almost 100 years ago. It's time for an upgrade.
But do you have to incentivize businesses to do those things that you're talking about, investing in their own people?
Well, what you could do very easily, the most simple way to do it is just provide tax credits and benefits for companies that invest in their own people or invest in their communities or do something that that strengthens the environment. Whatever it is you're trying to reward.
If you have an income tax that you want to phase out, that doesn't work either then, right? How do you, I mean, you have to balance your policies. If you want to go value-added tax that's going to replace the income tax, then I guess the tax credits don't work either, right?
Well, the value-added tax and income tax, I mean, they would both be in existence for some period of time. And again, what you'd be looking to do is you're trying to get rid of individual income taxes because you're trying to not discourage work in any form, but it could be that corporate income tax is with us for quite some time.
Going to switch topics here. You propose something called a local journalism fund. It would establish $1 billion doled out by the FCC to help local newspapers and websites operate, certainly as the economy is changing for them. The First Amendment, certainly based on an independent media. I'm a big fan of the First Amendment, clearly. Doesn't this, though, open the door to having a state-run media and possibly take the country down a dangerous road if there's a slippery slope by funding journalism?
Well, the slippery slope and the dangerous road we're on right now is that it's very hard to have a functioning democracy when there's no local journalism. And local journalism has been dependent for decades on classified ads that are now disappearing because of the internet.
And subscriptions.
And subscriptions, but we know that's not enough. And so thousands, I was just talking to someone from the Des Moines Register, and it looks like they might get acquired by a hedge fund that's then going to start firing people right and left. So we have to be honest about what's happening in journalism, where the market will not support many forms of it, and there is a need to transition to new models that are a combination of public and private. Public libraries can play a big role in this because right now they have community bulletin boards that people turn to see what's going on in their community. But if we want to have a functioning democracy, we need to have functioning journalism, and having the government help communities transition to a more sustainable model is a fantastic way to do that.
But I guess the risk is that people don't want the media to be answering to government. And when you have the government paying for it, that's where you might have that tricky relationship. You understand, right?
Oh, I understand the principle, but I just think that fear is very, very unfounded. Whereas as president, let's say I'm the president, I say, hey guys, local journalism fund, FEC. And the FEC simply just makes matching grants to places here in Iowa that are trying to establish sustainable journalism. And it's not like the FEC is going to be like, oh, what did you say about this and that? Like, you know, it doesn't have that kind of discretion or authority.
Well, who knows what the Democrats and Republicans in Congress would have to say when that money gets doled out. Foreign policy, that's an area where your opponents might say you lack the political chops. United States involvement in Afghanistan now more than 15 years long, Iraq almost as long. How do you approach that?
Well, you know, I believe the same thing that many Americans do, which is that we've gotten ourselves into trouble by making poor decisions because we've deluded ourselves into thinking that we're capable of doing things that we probably were not capable of doing. And we've wasted hundreds of billions of dollars and unfortunately American lives, young men and women, in conflicts that might not have achieved their goals and might not have been necessary. So my principles around foreign policy are around restraint and judgment, where we have to go in very judiciously and have a very clear set of goals that we think we can accomplish in a reasonable time frame.
But we're already there now, we're committed, so what do you think the goals should be for those areas particularly?
Well, again, you have to try and have a defined goal and say, okay, look, we're here, what can we get done in a reasonable time frame, what will that cost us, and then make a decision and then follow through.
What about Syria? I guess you tout being part of the Obama administration. I know as an ambassador to entrepreneurship.
Yes.
But he notoriously drew that symbolic red line about chemical weapons being used to prompt American intervention. That didn't happen. Now President Trump wants to withdraw American troops from Syria. Democrats don't want more military involvement basically in the Middle East generally. So what should the United States do?
You know, I think that Donald Trump's unilateral, hasty withdrawal from Syria was not very well done, ended up pulling the rug out from some of our partners and allies there. But I do think extricating ourselves from that situation is something that what we need to do, and we do need to try and empower the governments there and also our allies to be able to pick up where we leave off in that region, in that country.
Are we ceding power to Russia in control of the Middle East at that point?
Well, you know, I think what gets America into trouble is when you start seeing everything as a zero-sum game where it's like, oh, if we do something else and like someone else wins. That's the kind of out-of-date thinking that gets us into some of these situations in the first place.
But we know that Russia's interests aren't the same as our own, right? Don't we have to protect American interests to some extent over there?
Well, to me, the most straightforward thing we need to do where Russia's concerned is to give them a very clear message that if they have bots that misinform the American people and end up corrupting our democracy, that we're going to take that as an act of hostility and aggression and act accordingly. Like, that's actually a key issue that Americans can get behind and see very clearly in our relationship with Russia. Syria, you know, we need to accomplish what we can accomplish, but we've been there for years. We've invested a lot, and pretending that we can do more with additional investment may or may not be the right way to go. One
other foreign policy question, I guess, what ideas do you have to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that every administration says they're going to do something and all seem to fail?
Well, again, I mean, this is a situation where some of our best intentions may or may not have the best results. And so the goal should be to try and empower partners in that region to try and help resolve a situation that's been with us for decades. And there are no magic bullets in these situations. It's not like if you come in with a particular clever policy, you can resolve a situation that's been in place for decades.
Do you think it's something that the United States should ignore and just let the parties figure out itself? Does the United States have a role in trying to make that work?
You know, that's something that we have to determine, but I think America, again, should not take all these responsibilities onto itself. And we have big problems here at home. We're falling apart at home. We're disintegrating. Our life expectancy has declined for the last 3 years because of a surge in suicides and drug addiction. And it's going to be very difficult for us to accomplish foreign policy goals if we're not strong here. So job one as president is to make us stronger at home so we can do more.
And we couldn't squeeze all of our conversation into this program. How will you protect your personal data from online threats? What role he thinks the government should play? You can find that in a web extra online at ourquadcities.com.